In the small town of Willow Creek, there was a forest that everyone avoided. The Whispering Woods, they called it. Stories of people disappearing. Strange voices and shadowy figures surrounded the place. For decades, parents warned their children to stay away, and even the bravest adults refused to venture in. The woods always seemed darker than the rest of the town, as if the sunlight itself dared not enter. One crisp autumn evening, three teenagers, Claire, Ben, and Noah, decided to test their courage. Armed with flashlights and the bravado that only comes with youth, they made a pact. They would venture into the woods, follow the narrow path to the old stone well at its center, and return before midnight. As they approached the edge of the forest, the air seemed to change. It grew heavier, colder. The rustling of leaves sounded almost like whispers, though no wind stirred. Claire laughed nervously. "It's just the stories getting to us," she said, but her voice betrayed her unease. The trio stepped into the woods. The flashlight beams flickered, barely penetrating the dense darkness. The whispers grew louder, indistinct murmurs that seemed to come from all around them. Ben turned to Claire. "Did you hear that? It said my name." "No," Claire replied sharply. "It's just the wind." But her grip tightened on the flashlight. Noah, the quietest of the group, suddenly froze. "Stop," he whispered. "Do you see that?" Ahead, just off the path, was a figure. It was barely visible, cloaked in shadow, with eyes that glowed faintly. It didn't move, didn't breathe. They stared, paralyzed, until the figure dissolved into the darkness. Noah's voice shook. "We should leave." But Ben, stubborn and determined to prove his bravery, shook his head. "It's just our imagination. The well isn't far." They pressed on. The whispers grew louder, now distinctly forming words. "Turn back, leave, you don't belong." When they finally reached the old well, it was worse than they had imagined. Moss-covered and crumbling, it seemed to breathe, the ground around it pulsating faintly. Noah hesitated. "Let's take the picture and go." Ben knelt to peer into the well. "It's just an old—" His sentence stopped abruptly. Claire and Noah watched as he stiffened, his eyes wide and blank. Then, without warning, he plunged headfirst into the darkness. "Ben!" Claire screamed, rushing to the edge. She shone her flashlight down, but it revealed nothing, just an abyss. The whispers became a roar, deafening and angry. "We have to go!" Noah grabbed her arm, pulling her back. But as they turned, the forest path had vanished. The trees pressed closer, their gnarled branches reaching out like claws. Shadows moved in the periphery, darting between the trunks. They ran, hearts pounding, lungs burning. No matter how far they went, the well seemed to reappear in front of them. The whispers turned into laughter, cruel and mocking. Finally, Claire tripped, her flashlight skittering across the ground and going dark. "Noah!" she screamed. But when she looked up, he was gone. In his place stood the shadowy figure from before, its glowing eyes fixed on her. It raised an arm, and from its sleeve fell a cascade of faces. Ben's, Noah's, and countless others. They stared, mouths open in silent screams. Claire scrambled backward, tears streaming down her face. She whispered a prayer, but the figure leaned closer, and the world went black. The next morning, the townspeople found the teens' flashlights at the edge of the woods, their batteries drained. No trace of the trio was ever found. The whispers in the woods grew louder after that, and the stories of the Whispering Woods became warnings once more. But sometimes, on quiet nights, the townsfolk swear they hear voices, young, frightened voices, calling for help. And if you listen closely, you might even hear the whispers calling your name.